Hey guys, back in the video. So today I'm going to be doing a review of Black Desert Online. Now Black Desert is a Korean MMO developed in 2014 that came over to the West in 2016, last year in the spring. It's an action MMORPG, which means that similar to Blade and Soul, Terra, to an extent Guild Wars 2, instead of having the lock-on system and abilities that you cast from a hotbar, such as World of Warcraft, you actively use your abilities and do combos using the buttons on your keyboard and your mouse. Now, what are the pros and cons of Black Desert? Well, for starters, Black Desert is a beautiful game. This loading screen right here, this is not a render, this is actually how the game looks. If you've got good enough graphics and a good enough computer to handle it, Black Desert will look absolutely amazing. The combat is also, bar none, it's incredible. It is probably the most fun I've ever had fighting in an MMORPG. Each character has their own unique combat style, their own unique skills and animations, and it doesn't feel like an MMO when you're fighting. It feels much more like Diablo, where you use your abilities to destroy groups of enemies, and you just do this over and over again in the quest for loot and items. It's a sandbox open world, and what that means is you can do whatever you want in Black Desert. If you want to just spend your days in the city crafting, spend your days by the sea fishing, selling your fish to vendors, make a trading empire, make a workshop empire, no matter what you want to do, you can do it in Black Desert. If you want to spend all your days fighting, you can do that too. And the classes, as I've already mentioned, they're distinctive enough to feel good. What that means is, unlike some games where each class just feels like a reskinned version of the class trying to do damage with different animations or different types of skills, Black Desert's classes feel different enough that it feels, if you're playing a sorceress rather than playing a wizard, it feels good. If you're playing a ranger or a warrior, that also feels good. Now, to add to that, there is no Holy Trinity, which means you don't have dedicated tanks, you don't have dedicated healers, so each class is a damage class. Now, some classes are tankier than others. A Valkyrie, for example, has a much better block, they have very powerful damage reduction, and they also have their own heal, compared to a Dark Knight, who has to use her mobility and use invincibility frames to try and avoid getting hit. However, the Dark Knight, in return, has better AoE and better damage than the Valkyrie. A big pro in Black Desert is there's no soulbound weapons or armor. What this means is that any weapon or armor that you have can be transferred over to any character you have or sold on the marketplace. If you have a piece of gear worth 1 billion silver, you can sell that piece of gear for 1 billion silver instead of buying it, equipping it to your character, and basically having that 1 billion silver go away forever. Of course, you do have a cool weapon in those games where that happens, but it can still feel kind of bad. Black Desert avoids this by allowing you to trade your weapons and armor between your characters. However, there is no character trading, and I will between other players, and I will touch on that later. So armor is transferable among all characters. If I'm using armor on my Dark Knight, I can send that armor over to my wizard, he can use that too, and then I can send that over to my warrior, they can use that as well. However, weapons, while they are transferable, cannot be used by other classes. If I wanted to send my Dark Knight's Kriegsmesser over to my warrior, he would not be able to use that. If I want to send my wizard's staff over to my ranger, she cannot use that. However, another thing to note is that weapons and armor are available at all levels. It doesn't matter what level you get a piece of gear at, what piece of gear it is. You could have the best piece of gear in the game, for example, full boss gear, and make a level 1 character. That character can now use all those items. So that is a fairly decent pro when it comes to leveling other characters, and it is something the game does well. There's no gold sellers, so this is an extension to no trading that I mentioned. Because there's no trading, there's no gold sellers. And for people that have played other MMOs, one of the most common things MMOs have to combat is the huge amounts of people spamming in chat, www.goldforlife.com, buy gold, 1,000 gold for only $1.99. And then you go to the site and they steal your username and password and sell all your items to Chinese bot farmers. Black Desert has avoided this by just not having trading. And while that is a huge con in its own right, it does mean there's no gold sellers to annoy the hell out of you every day. Open world PvP is a huge part of Black Desert. So for people that miss games such as Ultima or other games where you could just fight people wherever, especially with World of Warcraft and other games becoming much less open world PvP centric in recent times, Black Desert is all about world PvP. Fighting for your grinding spot, fighting for territory, fighting with other guilds because they've been attacking your guildmates. This is all a common thing that happens in Black Desert all the time. Gear will not be made irrelevant either. So if you've got this piece of gear that you really like, you spend a lot of money on it, and you quit the game for a month or two, your gear will still be relevant when you come back if it's at a decent upgrade level. They will not have introduced a new piece of gear that's better than this piece of gear, and they will not have made everything you've done irrelevant. They have a policy of horizontal progression instead of vertical. And what that means is if you've got a boss helmet, and that helmet dropped from a boss, they might introduce another boss gear helmet. However, that helmet, instead of being an upgrade, would be a side grade. So instead of it giving more health and more armor, it might give more health or more armor, while the other helmet gives the other one. If you have a helmet that gives 50 health, the other one might give 50 armor, for example. AFK money making is probably the final big pro of Black Desert. What this means is you do not have to go out and fight enemies or actively spend your time crafting to make money. You can set your character to crafting and leave for hours, and your character will just keep doing it to make you money. This means that even if you don't have time to actively play the game every day, say you only have an hour a night to game, you can still be making progress on your character and catching up to the top players, just because you can make money AFK. Now, Black Desert, while it does have a number of pros, also has a large number of cons. The game is fairly poorly optimized. If you notice my graphics right here, I have them set to low at the moment so that I can properly record this video without any frame stutters. My computer can handle it on high, but even though I've got a very good computer, the fan still has to whir intensely, and you still got to do a lot of work to make it properly play, just because it's a poorly optimized game in terms of using the resources at its disposal. There was also, this can also actually affect your combat, as it was recently discovered that your frame rate is actually directly tied to the speed of your animations, which means if you have 60 FPS, you will do your animations slightly faster, not a lot faster, but slightly faster than someone playing at 30 FPS and doing the same combos. One of the biggest cons of Black Desert is the no trading. So while it does combat gold sellers, what no trading does is it means you cannot trade with other players at all. You can trade them potions, that's it. If you have a friend that wants to join the game, you cannot give them silver to help them catch up. You cannot give them gear to get them to a decent gear score right off the bat. They have to do everything on their own. And while this wouldn't matter in a game such as World of Warcraft, Destiny, or any other MMORPG style games where there's constant vertical progression, introducing new sets of armor and weapons every month to try and keep players chasing the best stuff and playing the game, because of Black Desert's horizontal progression, the gear cap is incredibly difficult to reach. And a new player will take a long time to even get to a relevant gear score where they can actually fight well-geared players. And because you cannot trade with them, you cannot help them get to this faster. They have to do it all on their own, which means a lot of players will quit the game because they just do not want to put in the amount of effort required to catch up to their friends who might have been playing for months or even more than a year by now on the Western servers, North America and Europe. So no trading definitely has its advantages, but the disadvantages are pretty huge. It's also, to expand off that, a Korean MMO, which means you have to be prepared to grind like crazy. Koreans love to grind. All their MMOs love to grind. If you remember FlyFF, Lineage, Aeon, any of those games from way back then, very grindy. Black Desert is no different. You've got to grind a lot if you want to get to the max level. And there is no hard cap, but the highest level people have achieved so far is 62. And by that I mean there is the amount of level 62s in the world can be counted on your two hands. In fact, I believe can even possibly count it on one hand, as I think there's like 4 of them. It is that difficult. 61 is achievable, but most players will stop that are serious about grinding and getting to a high level will stop at 60. And most players that play normally will probably stop at about 56 or 57. And I just lost my horse. All right, that's interesting. That's never happened to me before. Oh, I'm back on my horse. All right, we're back in game, guys. So grinding, definitely a huge thing. You can reduce the amount of grind for silver with the AFK money making that I mentioned earlier. However, for levels and skill points, you are forced to grind. There is no alternative. You need to grind. There will be an alternative. It's on Korea right now, coming fairly soon, which will allow you to basically AFK. Okay, this is actually really weird. I've never seen this before. Get experience AFK. However, there is no method on North America or Europe right now that allows you to do that. So another thing from the no trading is that the market has fixed prices. So for players that have played World of Warcraft or other Western MMOs, you've probably seen a scenario where the market, a price for an item suddenly goes way up, or a price for an item suddenly crashes because people have been manipulating the market. You cannot do this in Black Desert because the market has fixed prices. So if I just bring up my inventory right here, you look at my Witch's Earring, you will see maximum and minimum. These are the maximum minimum prices of that item that you can put it on the market for, and that you'll have to buy it off the market for. And while prices can fluctuate, they fluctuate within a set range. The Witch's Earring as a blue accessory can fluctuate between 1 million and I believe 11 million, maybe 12 million. However, if an item is always purchased whenever it goes on the market, it'll go to max price. And if it's never purchased, it'll go to minimum price. It kind of naturally sets itself like that. But these set prices mean you cannot make money off the marketplace. A savvy player cannot just sit on the market, buy certain items, hoard them, or work with other players to limit the supply of items and then flood the market with them and make money that way. In fact, you will lose money if you do that because there's a marketplace tax of 30%, which if you have a value pack active, goes down to 15.5%. Yeah, so you get 84.5% of the total value of items. So the fixed price on the market, it can be a good and bad thing. It's a good thing for players with less silver because the highest price you'll have to pay for an unupgraded item is 95 million silver, which is a good amount for a new player, but it's not that much for an experienced player. However, it can be really annoying with certain items because if an item has a max price that's really low, and a good example of this would be logs. So just let me check to see if I have it equipped. Oh, and I do have one. Perfect. So if I chop down a tree, not that tree apparently. Here we go. So if I chop down a tree, it'll give me a few items. It'll give me the type of timber that the tree has, and it'll give me a normal log. And a normal log is only worth 830 silvers. However, the individual types of timber can be obtained by sending workers to certain nodes where they will get you those types of timber. Logs cannot be obtained by that. The same goes for rough stones from mining and a few other items, such as weeds. However, people do not sell these items because these items are in huge demand, and you don't receive any money from selling these. If you could sell these to the market, they would probably sell for over 10,000 silver each, if not more than that, just because everyone needs these, and lots of people would love to not have to grind and go out and gather themselves for these. They would love to just pay people to do it for them. And a lot of people would love to be able to be paid to do that for them. It would open up gathering as a much more viable method of making money. But because of the fixed market, that is not the case. Now, Black Desert, the biggest complaint levied against it by pretty much everyone, has to be that it is a pay-to-win game. And that is not necessarily true. Black Desert, if you define pay-to-win as being able to buy combat stats or stats that affect combat off the marketplace using real money, then Black Desert is not pay-to-win. However, if you define it as being able to get advantages over other players by spending money, and large advantages, not just small advantages, Black Desert is definitely pay to win. And everyone agrees that Black Desert is pay for convenience. So if I open up the cash shop with F3, there are a lot of items I can buy here. Now, some of them have almost no effect. Outfits, all they provide you with is a slight reduction to the durability loss of an item and a 10% gain in combat XP, which sounds like a lot, but when most times you're grinding, you have over 150 to 200% combat experience boosts active, 10% is pretty much nothing. However, there are some items that will make a huge difference. Pets are one of the biggest ones. The reason people say that the price tag for Black Desert isn't actually the $10 you spend for it, but more like 60 or 70, is because of pets. Pets are one of the biggest things Black Desert has done to remove convenience from the game to force you to buy that convenience from their cash shop. Black Desert has no loot all or auto loot features. Instead, it has pets, and what pets do is they will loot for you at a fixed interval. Once a maximum level tier 1 pet will loot once every 4 seconds, or 3.6 seconds if you set it to agile. And you can have 4 of these active at one time, and you can also get them up in tiers. But to get them up in tiers, you have to, once again, pray to RNG, and you have to smash 2 pets together, and they have to be the same type. So if I have 2 crows, 2 tier 1 crows, I can smash them together and they become a tier 2, or if I'm lucky, a tier 3 crow, which now picks up an item once every 3 seconds, which is obviously much better than once every 4 seconds, because when you're killing things at a rate of about 10 every 5 seconds, because you're killing things so quickly, your pets leave a lot of stuff on the ground. And having pets, I mean, it's nice to have pets, don't get me wrong, my pets are adorable. If I take out my cat here, take out my little birdie, take out my bunny, take out my penguin. My pets are adorable. They follow me around, they're cute, they have their own little animations. I love my pets. I don't appreciate having to buy my pets just so I can properly grind without getting arthritis from having to press the item pickup key for each individual mob. That is something that should have been disappeared 10 years ago, and Black Desert has brought back to force you to buy pets. And pets are not the only instance of pay for convenience. The value pack is basically a subscription. Despite the fact that you buy the game, they have the value pack, which is quite literally a subscription. It lasts for 1 month. It costs $15 US, which is more like $20 Canadian, and it provides a number of very useful bonuses. It gives you extra weight limit, it gives you extra inventory. Coming up on that, Black Desert has double dipped on your inventory. So your inventory in Black Desert has 2 different things. You have your weight, and you have an actual set inventory. So the set inventory is like Diablo. You have inventory squares. As you fill them up, your inventory decreases, and once you get to full inventory, same with World of Warcraft, you are forced to either get more inventory space by upgrading your bags, or drop some stuff off at the storage, or sell some items. And that's fine in a game where that's your inventory status. However, Black Desert has also gone the Skyrim method, where you have a weight limit, and each item in your inventory has weight to it. And this can feel really annoying. If you have a weight limit, you should not have a max amount of inventory. You should just have however much your character can carry. If you have a bag limit, then your character should, as a fantasy character, be able to carry as much as you freaking can, and just have the storage space in their bags as the limit. Black Desert has opted for both, and the prices for them are quite high. For example, weight, you can buy 1 of each for your character, and it will cost you about $47 US. More if you're in pretty much any other country, because the exchange rate. And not only that, this is not for your entire account. This is for this one character. If I want to buy weight on my Musa or my Mewa, I have to buy it all over again. Same with outfits, despite the fact that most classes just have the same outfits. For example, I've got the Animo skin here for my Dark Knight. If I go over to the Ranger, I have the Animo skin for a Ranger. And it looks pretty much identical. And yet you cannot transfer them to other female characters or your male outfits to the male characters. They are untransferable. And you can also not transfer them to other characters on your account. These are the only soulbound items, Pearl Shop items, and as well as a few quest items, I guess. They are bound to your character. If I make another Dark Knight, I would have to buy her all these items all over again. So that double dipping really hurts, the price really hurts, the fact that it's character bound really hurts, and altogether, it really sucks, and they deserve all the accusations of price gouging for that they get. Now, weight and inventory are not the only things. There are also maids, which are basically out-of-town storage and marketplace ferries that let you access the storage and marketplace from out of town. You can just drag them up here. You have Artisan's Memory, which lets you triple the amount of maximum durability you recover on items when you're recovering their max durability because you failed enhancing them. And Storage and Lodgings, which if I just go here, slot expansion. So Storage and Lodging are for individual cities. You can buy storage at the storage place, and you can buy lodgings because the storage of each city is not linked. Black Desert does not have quick travel. You have to travel everywhere manually on horse. And each city has its own amount of storage. They all start at a maximum of 16, and you can expand them to 192 by buying. And while these might not seem very big, these are actually some of the biggest moneymakers in the game for later game players because your worker empire relies on your contribution points. Right there. And you use contribution points to get workers, to activate places for workers to go, and to buy storage and lodgings in cities. So if you can buy them without using your contribution points, you can have more workers and more places for them to go, and so you can earn more money every day. So that's the cash shop. Apart from that, a few other cons are that it takes a long time to get to a decent gear level in Black Desert. Once again, similar to WoW, in World of Warcraft, it does not take long to get to a gear level where you are competitive with the current top tier of gear. You won't have the top tier, you'll still have to work for that, it'll probably take you a few weeks, but you can get to a competitive level. In Black Desert, that will take you weeks, if not months. Upgrading is also entirely RNG, so if you get unlucky, well, sucks to be you, but you're going to lose millions of silver and still have bad gear. And another con is that the servers are also RNG, to put it nicely. The servers can have a lot of problems. I feel that stuttering earlier in the video where it made me reload as I approached Portaferia was probably the servers having problems and trying to load Portaferia and failing. Sometimes servers are great, and when the servers are great, the game is great, but when the servers are bad, the game is terrible. Gear scales linearly, but only after you break the opponent's DR, as I've already mentioned, which means world PvP is extremely unbalanced. Trying to fight someone in world PvP when it's working properly feels amazing. You're having a good duel, you're trying to outplay them, they're trying to outplay you, you're kiting them around, you're fighting all across the map, it's great. Trying to fight world PvP against someone better geared than you is terrible because they're probably going to one-shot you. Fighting against someone worse than you is, I mean, it can make you feel powerful, but only for, the 2 seconds that they're still alive until they're dead, and you start to feel bad for killing someone that just started playing the game, probably. And finally, AFK money-making is also a con because having to leave your computer on all the time and is annoying. And you're forced to do it if you want to keep up with people that are doing it as well, because that is a huge source of money. Most players probably make about, a late game player probably makes about 50 to 100 million silver a day, just because even if they don't grind, their worker empire, their AFK processing, and any other AFK activities they have going on will allow them to make millions of silver, just AFK, as long as they attend to it 2 or 3 times a day. For players that don't do that, they have to grind, and grinding later in the game gets you about 10 to 12 million silver an hour if you're grinding in a normal spot and players aren't bothering you and you're just being allowed to grind properly. So to sum it up, Black Desert is a very fun game. I play it myself. Despite all the cons, despite the terrible cash shop, despite the convenience, the gouging, the combat and the graphics and the open world PvP, as well as the sandbox style game, make it so fun that you can kind of ignore those things. And for people with money, Black Desert is an amazing game because you don't care about those convenience things. You have them. So playing Black Desert, I would recommend it to anyone with a decent amount of money. If you have probably about $60 or $70, you can start playing Black Desert, no problem. There will be things you'll still want. You won't have enough money if you just want to spend that 60 or 70 to get everything you need. You'll probably get pets and some weight, but that's fine. And honestly, it really is a great experience. Joining a good guild, dicking around at pirates or some other decent grind spot, having open world fights against other guilds because one guild pissed the other guild off, so now you've got both guilds warring it out randomly, is a great feeling and one that not many games can replicate. However, if you don't want to spend a lot of money on a game, Black Desert is definitely not for you. If you don't have at least a decent computer, Black Desert's probably not the game for you. And if you don't want to leave your computer on 24/7, know that you are going to be gimping yourself compared to other players. Anyways, guys, that was my review of Black Desert Online. Hope you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you like it. Thanks for watching.